Hello and welcome to my latest video, which is all about my huge notebook collection, and right here are just a few that I've just taken out of the big wooden box. From here you can see there's still more in there. There are still more on my shelving unit. Some of them are still empty, but a lot of them have got words scribbled in them. A few have got some little drawings, mainly of chickens or ducks, but the majority have things inside such as recipes, to-do lists. I've got so many to-do lists. I've just gone through one which was the story of the birth of my daughter, who is my second child, and I've just made myself cry. I've got another journal all about when we bought our house, where we had the chickens and the ducks, and how I was getting really anxious because things weren't progressing. And oh my goodness, it's basically the last 12 years of my life are in these notebooks, and it's just brought out so many emotions for me this morning, and also taught me a few lessons, because I woke up this morning in a bit of a grump, and it was a little bit to do with my writing, yes. And I read some of the quotes that I've got in my notebooks. I read some of my positive excitement in my notebooks, and I feel a lot better. It's a funny old thing, isn't it? Notebooks. I mean, they come in all shapes and sizes. They've got different paper. Some are spiral bound. Some have got the glued edges. It's just a treasure trove. It's just such a delight to go through them. Even looking at things like my to-do list for Christmas about 10 years ago, and what I was preparing for our meal, or things that I needed to buy for my new baby. It's just a collection of so many memories. And do you know what? I've kind of been a little bit embarrassed about some of my notebooks. I mean, I've looked at them and I thought, oh, these are just a collection of to-do lists. But in amongst those to-do lists, you've got a paragraph of how I'm feeling at that particular moment, or a reminder of something I wanted to do. Or there might be a recipe scribbled on the back and it reminds you of the past. It's just a scrapbook of so many treasured things. So I thought I would share with you a few of the pages to show you how I've used my notebooks over the years. And these, how many have we got here? 6 here are my current notebooks. So I've got a journal that goes by the side of my bed. I've got another journal that goes everywhere with me. And then I've got a bullet journal tracker for my writing and creative projects. I've got my planning that I have on a monthly, weekly, daily basis. This Harry Potter one that I got for my birthday, it's a moleskin one, and I am actually using this one as a food diary. I've been a little bit poorly lately, and I wanted to identify if it was a certain food that was setting me off. So that's what this one is for. And then this one is the Traveller's Notebook, and I have I've used it in the past to put in my Instagram photographs and do some writing about what was happening at the time, and it's something I would like to continue with. I've only got up to 2015 at the moment, so there's still a lot to do. But I've also got this section here that I am going to use as I think they're called a Commonplace Book, and I'm going to use it to collect little quotes and things like that. And I'm also thinking, whenever someone says something nice to me on the internet and sends me a nice little message, I'm going to take part of that message and put that in here, and to remind me when you might get not so nice messages that there are people out there who enjoy what you do. So that's what this one is going to be, and that's just something that I started recently, and I'll see how I get on with that. So yeah, these are the ones I'm using at the moment, but I'm not going to share those with you today. I did think that this video was going to be all about how I journal and why I journal, and I will do that in a future video. And I started sort of making some notes in my journal because that's what I do, and then I think I wrote about 4 pages where I was feeling a bit low this morning when I woke up, as I've already said. And after writing those 4 pages and then coming up and reading what's all in here, I feel so much better. It's that power of the written word. But yes, I was going to do a how I journal and why I journal post, because what I've started doing, I've created a newsletter called Journal Notes, and it goes out every week, or it's going to be most weeks. So it's not going to be one of those, oh, I have to do it every week. I'm going to try and do it most weeks, and it's going to be mini essays, really tiny essays on these newsletters that have been inspired by something I've written in here, and it's going to be things along the lines of my creative life. So it's not going to be really personal things about friends, family, or anything like that. It's all going to be to do with my creative life and the mental blocks that you can put in place, or directions that you go on, or things that have helped you. And I am sending those out on, like I say, on a weekly basis to my subscribers. So if you're interested in receiving those, I will put the link in the description box below if you'd like to sign up. I've been watching videos on YouTube about other people's journaling, and it's really fascinating to see the different ways that people actually journal. Mine has evolved a lot over time, and I've been going through my boxes, and these journals are from 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. I know they are because this is when I used to be into spiral bound notebooks, and now I just can't get on with them nowadays. When my son was born, it was shortly after that I really started to write quite seriously and to put a lot of effort into it. And I started experimenting with all sorts of things. This one, for example, is called Pitching Tip Ideas. And this was after I'd taken a course from the London School of Journalism. And I think I did another online course as well, all about pitching to magazines. So that's what this notebook is. And you can tell I had a little toddler at the time, can't you? And this was just some ideas of things I could pitch to various magazines. Right, let's have a look. What have we got here? This one, that's a cake one. So this one, it says Trashy Reviews and Helen's Heroines. And Trashy was the online magazine that I was writing for. It was all about books, and I would write reviews, and I had a weekly column called Helen's Heroines, and I think that was my very first writing job, paid writing job. I mean, it was very, very exciting. And in here I've basically written down all sorts of ideas for the column, various female characters or books that I've read and what I thought about them, and it was all content for that particular online magazine. And then this one says Cake Blog, because I actually started a cake blog at some point. Again, you can tell I've got small children at this point, and straight away I see the words pepper and pig together, which obviously again means I've got small children. And it's just me. First of all, I was journaling a little bit about why I wanted to do a cake blog, and it was to do with my combination of a love for baking as well as a love for writing, and I wanted to combine the two. And then I sort of wrote down some ideas of what I would put on this cake blog, and in the end, that cake blog led to my second paid writing job for another website, and that also led to me being spotted by a literary agent. So it's very interesting and quite fascinating, really, how ideas in a notebook can then go online and then lead to a job, a paid job, and then lead to further possibilities. And it all starts with a notebook. So yeah, not all of these notebooks have been used for journaling. A lot of these notebooks have been used, like I said, for lists, for recording books that I've read, for what I need to get from the shops for my daughter. This one is when I went through a big period of time where I was taking on clients, and I still take on clients now. I help them, I mentor them with their online creativity. But this was when I went and did it in a very big way. And I had quite a number of clients every week, whereas now I only take on a maximum of 2 or 3 per month. But yeah, this was when I had my clients, and this was my client book, one of my client books at the time. These books, these are Kath Kidston designs, and I really enjoyed these books. I think it was the size of them. I do enjoy writing in a slightly larger book, and if you compare it to the Leuchtturm, is it the B5 soft cover notebook? They are quite similar in size. So yes, I've got lots of these ones. They're spiral bound, so I wouldn't get on with them now. So this one has Cakes and Chicklet written on the front, and this was what all to do, I think, I'm guessing here, would be to do with when I was putting together my book proposal for a book all about cake in fiction, in chicklet in particular, or women's fiction, really. It was the big thing to call it chicklet at the time, but you don't tend to call it that anymore, which is probably a good thing. So yeah, that was all my notes to do with that. A few more spiral bound notebooks here, and these have got this must be a party for one of my children, or it's got pom bears on, it's got crisps, banana crisps, fish fingers, mini sausages. Maybe it wasn't just for the children, maybe it was for some adults as well. What have we got here? This is when I was going to set up a hen hotel. Yeah, lots of research for my hen hotel and keeping chickens and stuff like that. Lots of lists in there as well. So they're my spiral bound notebooks. I don't know which one to do next. I think I'm kind of tempted to do these and to get it over and done with. Not in a bad way, it's just these are really, really personal notebooks, and I'm not going to share all the pages of these. But, I mean, this, look at that one, a kind of jewelled cover. I mean, it's very beautiful, but, oh, quite irritating to write in. And one I probably couldn't write in nowadays. I get more particular, I think, as I get older in terms of what I like to write in. This one, I wrote in this one when I was very heavily pregnant with my daughter. And this would be, she's going to be 12 at the end of this year. So nearly 12 years ago, I started writing in this one. And I had a tough time when I gave birth to my son, who is going to be 17 this year, and I started recording some of the feelings I was having. I didn't want to go through the same emotions I did with my son. So anyway, long story short, I recorded the birth, and this is what's made me cry this morning. I've basically opened it up and read it like a book, and as though it wasn't me, but oh my goodness, it made me cry. And this is the sort of thing I would write in here. And I had a C-section with my daughter, and I'm describing what the C-section was like, and it was quite a fascinating thing to go through, and I was absolutely so worried beforehand, but it was actually fine. But it was a really interesting process, so I'm glad I wrote it all down. It's lovely memories in there, and I'm just talking about how it was just a reminder this morning, as I'm going through a little bit of a tough time now with my health. Nothing serious, it's just more where I panic and I get anxious, and this reminds me that I've always been like that and I've always come through it. So it's a nice thing to read this morning. And then I've got these 3 journals here, which are hardback ones. We've got God Save the Queen, we've got some bicycles, and we've got some typewriters. And I loved these notebooks. They have basically very hard cardboard. They were just so lovely to write in. I'm not going to show you inside this one. It's quite a personal one. But again, it's really interesting reading through that. And I don't know what's in this one. Oh, this is planning out my nonfiction recipe book idea that was going off to the publishers. And it was all the different things that was going in there. And what's in this one? I mean, they're just fabulous books, aren't they? Oh, this is Hen Orchard, the ebook, and this is all about chickens and recipes, and there's lots of journaling in here as well. It's interesting looking back on it and looking back on the life that I used to have at our old house with all the chickens and the ducks. This one is another personal one, and I've just opened up the first page, and it's a very sad event to do with my grandmother. So again, I'm not going to share the inside of that one, but this was a journal as well. I think I kind of used to journal in a kind of diary format where I'd put the date at the top and then write what happened that day and try and do it on a daily basis, but the pressure of doing it on a daily basis was too much, so I often stopped and didn't continue. Whereas now I just have my journal there for whenever I need it. It's more of a, I don't want to say medicinal thing, but it is really, it's when I feel the need to empty the thoughts from my head. Right, what have we got in this pile? And it's, so many different designs, whereas nowadays I kind of stick to one design. In these days, I would just pick up whatever attracted me, and I didn't really think about whether it would lay flat, whether it was spiral bound, what the quality of the paper was like, whether it had one of these elasticated straps on, or had one going round that way. Or had a pen holder. I didn't think about any of those things, whereas nowadays I do, because they are becoming more and more important to me as I write more in my journals. I write very long form things in my journals, and they either turn into big essays for my patrons on Patreon, or they turn into these tiny essays, like I said, that I send out on a weekly basis in my newsletter. Oh, in this one we've got Polaroids. So this is, I'm now starting to do Instagram. And this is a very obviously an Instagram photograph that I've done. And this, again, sort of ties into the fact that I used to do a lot of baking around books. And that was, why I called myself the Bookish Baker, or a Bookish Baker. I've got a storyboard idea for Wild Garlic, a podcast idea, the stories behind the blogs. Why did you start blogging? This could be a series or a podcast. Successful women on the internet aged 30 plus. And it all started with their blogs. That might still be an idea of something to do in the future. Podcast about that. How it all started. And then this one, this is a lot to do with my blog again, and I think I felt like I had to go in the cake or the baking direction, but it never actually felt right for me. It was just because I enjoyed baking, but then I felt I had to incorporate it. So there's just lots of notes about blogging, about books, about baking, about Instagram, hashtags, a bit of journaling, lots of different things going on in there. And that one's coming apart. It's a sign of a well-used notebook, I think. No, there's not a lot in that one, but there is a very nice inside page on that one. That's obviously why I bought that, but I've not used that very much. And yet it's blank, it lies flat, it's got a hard back. You would have thought I'd have used that one. And then in here, we have chapters. So this one is all about my novel and writing down what's going to happen in each chapter and sort of dividing that all up. And that was just a cheap spiral bound one from Waitrose. So what have we got in this pile? I have highlighted a few pages because some pages I can't show you. So this one I've used for things like planning out blog posts, short story idea in here, multicoloured pages. This looks like also to do with my novel in there, writing notes. Then we have this moleskin. And this is when I was planning on writing a book all about how to keep chickens. I think I was going to make it into some sort of chicken book / memoir. And then starting to journal certain things in here. For example, I'm talking about pregnancy and chickens here. That might have turned into a blog post. I've always kind of, whenever I've journaled certain things, I often turn them into blog posts. Imposter syndrome, trip to London. What have we got here? Recipe for leek and potato soup. And then pictures of running ducks. In the beginning, there were 3 ducks, Neville, Jemima and Vanessa, and that is a true story. They were the 3 ducks that we used to have on our pond at our old house. And that's me attempting, I'm not a drawer, and that's just me attempting to draw chickens in my way. This one was obviously around Christmas time. Auntie Helen, there's a fox with a duck in its mouth. And that's when one of those ducks, Vanessa or Jemima, was taken by the fox. So this is obviously from when we lived at our last house, when we had the chickens and the ducks. Why does writing make me feel so guilty? Duck keeping tips. So that's how I used that particular notebook. This is another moleskin one. And again, this would be around the same time. So I've got the giant ash tree there, just writing certain things that I'd noticed about it. What's we got here? And then this is a stop motion idea of leaves falling off the tree. I don't think I actually did that. Duckling tails, journaling, ideas for hashtags, sort of all that sort of journaling and ideas and thoughts. And then this one's a poker pad, just some quotes. One size doesn't fit all. You are your niche. Write about the things you love. Do your own thing. That sort of thing. And then this, I think, was when I attempted bullet journaling. and I started sort of planning my month out and things like that. And what have I highlighted here? Oh, and I've also done some journaling in there as well about Instagram, stats, all that sort of thing, all the sort of thing that I do now, but I don't do it in quite a neat way anymore. That is just some of my notebook collection. Like I say, some I use for journaling, some I use for recipes, for to-do lists, just little jotting down little things. And often I find the to-do lists are next to the journaling, which are next to, I don't know, a group of hashtags for Instagram or some thoughts on a blog post. It's all jumbled in together. And I always used to think that this wasn't the right way of doing things, to have it all bunched up together, and that a journal should be just purely for journaling, but it isn't in my case. And sometimes, like in a big major event, maybe I'll have a notebook for that particular event, such as the birth of my daughter. But then other times it's just all spread about in lots and lots of different notebooks. And like I say, I always thought that wasn't the way to do it, but looking back, I find it's really fascinating to see it all jumbled up together. And even a shopping list tells a story, because what started with getting things like muslin squares or dummies or nappies and things like that, and then it progresses on to Peppa Pig, maybe something about Minecraft. Time has moved on, and yet there are snapshots of when they were little toddlers dotted about in all of my journals, and I think it's something to be treasured. I always thought, oh, maybe I should just chuck these out, but I can't. It's just so nice to go back and have a look at. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was a bit like a journey down memory lane for me, but it's just, I hope it gives you a little bit of inspiration if you want to start a notebook or a journal and you don't know how to do it. I would say there are no rules. You just write down in them whatever you want to write down in them. And even in my current notebook for my journal, even now in here, I've got, maybe really a personal angry piece that I've written that I would never show to anyone, but that's side by side with some ideas on why I do keep a journal. And then a few pages later, I've shown exactly why I keep a journal, because I was really low and down and everything like that. And I've also put in here things like sort of an analysis of my YouTube channel and a brainstorm and some of the views that I've been getting to see what's most popular on my channel. I've got some Instagram planning here as well. So not all of it is actual journaling stuff. And there's also things like extracts from my novel or a video idea, as well as thoughts on how I'm particularly feeling at that particular moment in time. So it's all an eclectic mix, but I think it's the diversity within the journals that makes them so interesting. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time for another video. Bye for now. Bye.